And the roll in when you come up with the screen, of course.
Welcome to Critical Issues, Alternative Views. I'm Ron Kramer and I serve as the host of the program. I'm a professor of sociology at Western Michigan University. And with me today are our two regular critical commentators. I gave you guys a new name.
Wow.
Bill,
I like it.
Bill used to call us the Viewmeisters, but I think critical commentators. Doesn't that sound pretty cool?
I like
Sounds
it.
powerful.
Anyway, my two critical commentators joining me today are Denise Keele and Don Cooney. Denise is a professor in the political science department. She's also affiliated with the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability, and she serves as the chair of the working group on climate change at Western Michigan University. Don Cooney, of course, is also a professor at the university in the School of Social Work, and Don serves as a Kalamazoo City Commissioner, and that particular gig is coming to an end, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit later on. Well, not much going on in the news today, so I don't know what we're going to talk about, but one of the things that I wanted to start with is the global climate strike.
Sure.
I think our last show, Denise, we plugged that. I
Yeah.
think we had the young people
Yes.
on as our guests,
Yep.
and they did such a fantastic
They did.
job. But so the global climate strike was Friday, September 20th. I think it was a tremendous success thanks to your leadership. So Denise has another job, and
Yeah.
that is she's chairing the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition.
That's right. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks Kalamazoo for coming out. A huge actual thank to Public Media Network who was there and recorded the whole thing. So if you missed 2 weeks ago now, Friday, September 20th, you can get on Public Media Network's website, and there's a YouTube video. They're playing it for us. You can watch the whole thing and judge for yourself. Thanks to Chris Ferguson, Larry Kildea, Bob, thank you guys. You guys did a great job making all that happen for us. So yeah, I think we were part of history is how we're gonna be able to look at not just what Kalamazoo did, but worldwide. The numbers are that about 8 million people worldwide participated in this International Day of Action in cities all from Jakarta to Europe to the US, everywhere. Kalamazoo brought out about 1,500 people is our estimate that day between the march that the students led from campus to then the events downtown at Arcadia Creek Festival Place. So we're almost there, I would say, with public awareness. We're getting closer with public awareness. If last time our folks from Sunrise and Kalamazoo Central were here, and they were citing some literature that we had all read this summer that says if you get 3.5% of the US population engaged in this kind of direct action, that's about the level you need to say you've got a real public awareness campaign and put enough pressure for politics to move. So 1,500 people is getting close to count. It depends on how you count Kalamazoo. If you count the students and we're 100,000, then I needed 3,500 people out there. And in the US, instead of that, 4 million or so, we need to get that to about 10 or 11 million people then, given the population of the US. So we're about halfway there, I would say, if you believe political science literature on what creates a social movement with enough folks out there. But just an incredible display of the signs that people have created and marched with. The speakers were all amazing, from coalition members to the students to youth to elementary school speakers. Please go watch them all. It's one of the most inspiring days in my life, actually.
And you did a fantastic job as the MC.
I try.
Coordinating everything.
Great.
It was a
It's
3-ring
great.
circus, or maybe
It pretty much was.
a 50-ring circus, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight the fact that the kids led.
Yes.
Yeah.
The climate kids. Mark Hertzgaard, who
my
was
gosh.
a journalist for
Yes.
the Nation, had an article back in March talking about the climate kids are coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
climate kids are coming.
Yeah.
And of
That's right.
course, making reference to Greta Thunberg and
That's right.
her tremendous effort, and of course she's in the United States right
That's right,
now,
yeah.
and so she was able to rally
Yeah.
so many young people. But there are many other kids who are already onto this, and
Yeah.
and locally they just did a fantastic job. There's a separate video
Yes.
of the Kalamazoo Central students
Yes.
that were participating. They helped organize the
That's
event.
right.
They also participated, gave some fantastic speeches
Yes, they
from the
did.
stage as well. And there's a separate video of them, I think, that's on the Public Media Network right now that people can also check out. So
That's
it
right.
was a very inspiring day. Don, you were there. You and Kathy were there. What'd you think?
It was terrific. It was just wonderful. I mean, the turnout was great, the enthusiasm all over the place. And I loved connecting with all the different social action groups around
Yes.
with the tables there. It was just a great day. Ron, I thought your speech was really powerful. Connecting with white collar crime and corporate crime. And you put it out so well about how this is a prime example of corporate crime and the harm that it does to all the people. It was just a great day,
Yeah.
really a great day.
One of the things I tried to emphasize in my talk was that this is an intergenerational.
Yes, that
Yes.
was powerful.
And
that
I
was
wanted
powerful.
I wanted to highlight again the participation of the young people in this,
That's
because
right.
they recognize that their future's at stake.
That's right.
And they recognize that the adults have failed them up to this point. And so my book that's coming out in February is called Climate Crimes, Carbon Criminals, Climate Crimes. But to me, the most important climate crime is that it's an intergenerational crime,
Yeah.
victimizing these young people and their future and future generations.
That's
my
right.
grandchildren, I had to get a shout out to all my grandkids
Always.
in my
Yeah.
speech. And I really wanted to highlight that
Yeah.
issue.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's such an important issue. And I guess that's why so many young people now have been mobilized on the whole thing, because they know it's them, their children
That's right.
and their grandchildren that are going to feel the worst effects of that. So it's really renewing the whole social movement
Yes.
atmosphere in the country. I really think so.
Yeah, we've certainly done a good job with the intergenerational aspect, again, because these young folks realize it is their future that's
Yeah.
imperiled,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
what they're facing. So it doesn't end with the strike. So one of the things that we very intentionally went into was, great, we're going to have a great International Strike Day here in Kalamazoo. We're going to get as many members of the coalition as we can, and the tabling and the speakers, and you know, 5-hour marathon event to show how dedicated we were on a very, very hot,
It was hot.
day. The climate came
no
out to
global
show us that it was for real. And so we are continuing, if you let me plug. So if you want to stay updated on these things, the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition is on Facebook, or you can find us through our climate change working group at Western. And what we're doing is every Friday, all right, through the Fridays for Future Idea, post-strike, we are hosting a educational or activity workshop, and that's with several different, mostly educational partners. So the Kalamazoo Nature Center, Central High School, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, their Food Innovation Center, and Arcus Center for Social Justice and Leadership, and of course Western Michigan University Office for Sustainability. We're all kind of sharing the hosting duties, and so this series is going on every Friday noon to 1 at one of these locations. And so it's everything from institutions and politics to how food. There'll be a section on food where we actually are going to host a low carbon cooking class afterwards, for example, to give you examples of some of the activities. Next week will be climate refugees and migrant crisis. So we've got it planned out through December, but we're going to do January through June if we have anything left in the tank
Terrific,
here.
terrific.
So that's something that has sort of come out again. It's great to get everyone together for one day, but we need to keep this momentum going and continue to build more partners and continue to build that awareness so that we get as many folks as possible to understand what's going on and what they can do about it.
So we should also mention that the City Commission,
Thank you.
in a proclamation on the 21st, of October,
Yes.
we'll be declaring a climate crisis in the city.
Well, I
And
hope that will be the vote. Maybe you are,
it'll be the vote.
are foretelling for me. So
It will be the vote.
So we've also, the coalition has worked very, very hard with the Environmental Concerns Committee for the City of Kalamazoo and the commissioners to put together a really nice resolution, I think. People worked pretty hard. There's the climate mobilization. There are over 1,000 cities that have declared a climate emergency. Again, just to take it a step back and bring the awareness to the issue that it deserves, and in support of the political actions and climate action planning, but just to get everybody on the same page. And so that's been really nice. There's a ton of templates out there, but we really tailored ours to Kalamazoo specific and things within the strategic planning and the current goals of the city and our own climate action planning process. So I hope it's some really powerful language, and we'll still show up so that we can show our support on October 21st down at Kalamazoo City Commission. So we're very pleased to see that moving forward.
I hope we can pack the house that day.
That's my plan.
We
Yes.
understand.
We had a lot of people that came out in the summer to talk to the Environmental Concerns Committee.
That's
and
right.
express their support for such a emergency
That's right.
declaration. So hopefully they'll come back again on
That-
Monday
Yeah.
the 21st in front of the City Commission to do the same thing.
Great.
That's right.
And Denise, you're talking about building momentum,
Yeah.
and getting a certain percentage of the population
Yeah.
involved. And I'm just reminded of the book by Robert J. Lifton called The Climate Swerve.
Yes.
Lifton argued in there that he was detecting a climate
Yeah.
swerve, a more formed awareness of the climate crisis and our awareness of our species, that we're a single species and we have to protect ourselves. And so he was arguing, and this was a couple of years ago,
Yep.
that he was detecting this climate swerve. And I think after September 20th, I'm feeling it. I detect
Yes.
that climate swerve.
Right.
Yes.
Millions of people around the world, all the young people that are getting
Absolutely.
involved. I also think it's important to highlight the media coverage, because the media has been dismal for the most part in
Good.
covering the climate
good point.
issue over the years. Just absolutely irresponsible, I think, in terms of its lack of coverage or lack of ability to put it in the proper context. And of course, they always operated with this balance as bias position. Well, here's
Yes.
thousands of scientists and there's one lone dissenter over here.
Right.
Well, let's give them equal time, right?
Right.
That's the balance as bias thing.
Yeah, right.
But what I'm seeing now is that the media
Yes.
is changing. There's much more coverage.
Yes.
Time magazine has a special
Yes.
issue
That's
that
right.
just came out that's
Yes.
devoted entirely to the climate
How
crisis.
mainstream journalism
The
finally.
Economist.
The Economist.
has a special issue.
Yes,
We're actually making it onto the
Yeah.
CBS and NBC and ABC
Yeah.
national news. So there really is a change, I think,
Yes.
in terms of how it's being covered. And Mark Hertzgaard and The Nation and others have put together a kind of concerted campaign to say, hey, media, you got to pay more attention to this.
Yeah.
And I think it's beginning to pay off. So
Absolutely.
an important part of this climate swerve is not just the participation of the young people, not just the millions around the world, but also the way the media covers it. Because
Absolutely.
that is such a
Right.
critical component of this whole
Raising
thing.
the
Which
consciousness.
is extremely important. And Ron is responsible in part for our new name of the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition. Language matters. Calling this a disruption, an emergency, a crisis has been a big change in the framing of the issue over the last year. And for me, a lot of this last year, what has changed, it was a year ago, almost to the month, that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change put out their special report of 1.5
Right.
degrees. That then the U.S. Fourth National Climate Assessment came out and essentially saying two things. Climate change is happening right now. It's worse than it appears. And if we don't start to take urgent changes in all aspects of society within about the next couple years, at least get those started,
Right.
then we've got, that's where the 12 years comes from, right?
That's where the
A
12
year
years-
ago today, Greta's movement didn't exist. She
Wow.
had just started it. So when I think about that
What
swerve,
happens in that 1 year.
and that 1 year,
Yeah.
and why the Unite Behind the Science is so important, right? Those reports came out, and it's, groups like Extinction Rebellion that say, tell the truth. Like, we all have to face this, and that's why I think you've seen this movement. And also, in part, the newer groups and Greta's, Fridays for Future, they are not offering a policy solution. It's almost like, so in my world, we've returned to, let's just identify the problem first, right? Let's get rid of some of the partisan baggage that has hindered and hampered this issue for 40 years now, and let's go back to step one. Is there a problem? Yes, there is. And so a lot of the energy right now isn't towards a particular solution, although groups are certainly out there and still doing that, Sunrise and Citizens Climate Lobby. But a lot of the attention right now is just, let's recognize this fundamental fact about the existential crisis, and then we can have the real conversation about what to do. And so for me, I think that's been a real shift in why you see so much energy this last year between the science and then Greta's movement, and offering, again, look at the problem, right? Instead of the solutions just yet, just for a minute.
Right, but at the political level, at the policy level, there also are some important things happening.
There absolutely
which I think, you know, and eventually those two things do have to be linked, right?
Yes.
Once we create the greater awareness, we do have to say, what are we going to do about this? And then the next step. And so I think it's very important to highlight the Green New Deal, which we've done on this program. We talked about it when it was first introduced. I wanted to highlight a new book that's just come out by Naomi Klein. And Naomi Klein's book is important for a couple of reasons. She's got a lot of material in there about Greta and the children and the children's movement. But basically, our world is on fire. This is language from Greta, right?
Yeah.
Our world is on fire, and but the Green New Deal is one way to try to address this. And so, you know, Naomi Klein, The Burning Case for a Green New Deal, an important new book, and it's actually a collection of articles that she's written in recent years with some new material that's just been added. But she makes a very strong case for the Green New Deal in this book, lays it out very clearly. And you know, eventually we do have to get there. We need to raise the awareness, but we've got to have action. Urgent action,
That's
right? We only have 11 years now.
That's right.
to act on this, and
some would say fewer.
some would say much fewer. So the Green New Deal is very important. And I also wanted to just highlight that Bernie Sanders, as presidential candidate, has also put out his own version of the Green New Deal, very detailed. Actually moves beyond the resolution that was introduced in Congress earlier this year. And so Bernie's proposal, I think, is very important and needs to be looked at. So I would say that at some point on this show, we'll probably come back and look at the Green New Deal again, look at the details in Klein's book, to look at the details of Bernie's proposal, and to assess what changes this might bring about, the political prospects for this. And of course, a lot of that's going to depend on the election next year. So one final thing to point out about the climate strike and the climate issue is that one of the things that happened on that Friday, September 20th, is that we had a representative from the Kalamazoo Public Library. Who came up on stage. And what did she announce, Denise?
Oh my gosh, so they kept this secret from all of us, even the organizers. I had no idea what she was going to say, but I had a hint. If the Kalamazoo Public Library wants to come give an announcement, if you don't know, I think this is year 18 of the Kalamazoo Public Library hosting a Reading Together series where they choose a common read for the community. And they announced at our event that they had chosen essentially a climate change
that they had
book.
surveyed what people wanted. And climate change was #1 on the list.
That's right. And so we have been doing this community, again, Kalamazoo shows up, and they have chosen Jonathan Boyer's book, which is We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast.
There, it's up on the screen right
He's
now.
the author of Eating Animals. So there's a huge movement in Kalamazoo around how food is connected to climate and food justice in our community. And so this book deals with a lot of those issues as well. That public read, he'll be here March 10th
next year.
which I just reminded the library committee is also the same date as the presidential primary here in Michigan. So Denise Keele is going to be a little busy on March 10th between getting out the vote for the primary and making it to this wonderful talk. So I have suggested, that I wear these different hats because they actually go together. Voting and thinking and knowing about climate are two things that you could put together in your world too. So I'm very excited. I think that there will be, stay tuned and go on the Kalamazoo Public Library's website. Thank you, Karen Trout, who runs that program. They're going to host and help us host a ton of different book clubs and reads throughout February to get everybody in the community reading the book and engaged. They want some experts to come talk to them and facilitate some discussions. So I envision a process a lot like when we read Naomi Klein's book through our own book club and got our students to read it, and they were trained to become facilitators at those discussions. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for our community to connect around this book. So.
And the book's available. I
That's
picked
right.
up a copy at a local bookstore
Right.
Yep.
that I won't mention the name of, but it's on Oakland Drive. And so I found a copy there. The library has, I think
That's
they said,
right.
100 or more
I
copies.
think so, yes.
I've been talking to students about it and say, hey, go down and get a copy from the library.
That's right,
Because
yeah.
in my Climate Change and Society
That's
class,
right.
certain students are doing projects and papers, and I said, hey, this book
There
will
you go.
tie in. It looks like a very interesting book. I mean,
Yes.
I haven't read it all, but I flipped through it and read
Yep.
parts of it. He has a very distinct writing style, and he has
Yes.
these sort of short, clipped segments or
Yep.
chapters that kind of build on each other.
Yes.
He doesn't get to the main point till page 63.
Oh,
When he gets to page 63, he says, well, what I really want to talk about in this book is the fact that you shouldn't eat animal products for breakfast or lunch.
right.
And it's,
Right.
But he takes him all
Yes.
that way till
Yes.
he finally gets to that point, and
Yeah.
has sort of a dialogue in there between
Yeah.
himself and his soul, because he says, I can't,
Right.
I'm not perfect, I can't do this.
No.
This is hard for me, and this is what I'm
Yes.
suggesting. But it
I
looks
think
very
it's
interesting.
really important. And on our last show when Chloe was here from Kalamazoo Central High, yes, everyone is going to need to come at this issue with some amount of personal sacrifice. And there's no shame, right? What the kids call the call-out culture. No one's perfect, and there are going to be really hard things that not everyone is going to be able to do in order to address the climate crisis.
And it's
right?
a struggle. We're in a
Everyone
struggle.
can do what they can, and so I really like Foyer's approach in this book, because he's not saying, which would be great though for the planet. He's not saying become a 100% vegan yesterday. He's saying start where you are, skip it at breakfast, then skip it at lunch, and see how far you can get, because it is we are asking people for personal sacrifice, and everyone needs to find where they're comfortable at on that scale.
Right,
and
right.
if everyone did something, right, is the idea, collective action, right?
But we've got to always connect it back to the political issue.
Yes.
To the,
Right.
to the
Yeah.
political economy, and I think he does that as well. He does address that issue
Absolutely,
and the
yeah.
connection there between the personal and the political. And by the way, when we're talking about the political, I want to point out that, as I mentioned in my talk at the climate strike, in my book, Carbon Criminals, Climate Crimes, I identify 4 different climate crimes. I point out that the Trump administration has engaged in all 4 of those crimes. That the Trump administration continues with regulatory rollback. I mean, just recently they told California that they're going to try to rescind their ability to set higher emission standards,
Right.
and they're rolling back regulations on methane. And in fact, the New York Times keeps a running tab, and at this point they have 85 different environmental rules and regulations that have been either rolled back or in the process of being rolled back by the Trump administration. So I mean, they're just basically saying, let's foster the fossil fuel extraction and consumption as much as possible, and let's limit the ability of government to do anything about this. And to me, this is a crime.
Yes.
And it was interesting, I also picked up Nathaniel Rich's book called Losing Earth,
Yes.
A Recent History. Now, mostly he focuses on the decade of the 80s
Yes.
And why we had a chance to do something about climate change and didn't do it. I wish I would have remembered to put Rich's book up, but Losing Earth. But then now that was a magazine article that started out. Now he's updated it as a book, and he took a little heat in the article because he sort of implied that it was human nature to not address this problem. But in the book, he comes out strong in the afterword and points to the climate denial movement. And he basically says, the people who are participating in this movement, who are trying to deny climate change and block change, this is sociopathic behavior.
Wow. Yeah.
Sociopathic behavior. And then he says, if you have a presidential administration that's trying to roll back environmental regulations and promote fossil fuels, this is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
So pretty strong language
Yeah.
that he uses in the book. So I would also throw that out there as a recommended read. Well, speaking of Trump,
How about some other crimes?
what's happening in Trump world these
Anything
days?
going on there?
Anything happening?
Oh my gosh, wow.
With so we
Wow.
know that right now an impeachment, a formal impeachment inquiry
Yes.
has been opened by Nancy Pelosi
Yes.
in the House of Representatives. Based on, Denise, what happened?
Oh my
What led to this latest round?
You know, I'm not sure where to start. If you had asked me at the beginning of last week if we'd be sitting here talking about this, no. As the kids say, right, that escalated quickly. All of a sudden, well, we have a whistleblower report about a phone call from President Trump to President Zelensky of Ukraine, essentially saying, do me a favor, right? I have money for you and aid, and we have
Which
weapons.
is being blocked, right? Currently
And
blocked.
was
Right? This military aid had been blocked already before the phone call.
And you know, this my main rival, Biden. I'm sure there's something there with his son who is on this board, right? And it's the amazing amount of detail that we know, even secondhand, from the report so far, because the whistleblower's identity is, of course, unknown. Yesterday, though. Ukrainian envoy Volker gave testimony for like 7 hours or something.
They said 9.
And a very damning text message
Yes.
was revealed where it
Yes.
said, I don't think we should be messing around with military aid for a political favor, something along those lines.
Right.
Yes.
So I mean, essentially this is what it was. And this is illegal. We should make it very clear.
Very clear.
Soliciting a foreign government
Yes.
to participate in an American election in any way, shape, or form is illegal under federal law.
Absolutely.
It's an impeachable offense.
Yes, high crimes and treason would be, so in my class we often play a game called WWFD, what would the founders do? The founders of this country, right, and writers of our Constitution absolutely put in there that it is a crime to even insinuate or offer anything of value, and they didn't just even mean money, like information, right, to engage foreigners in our elections. And that's because we want our elected officials to be representative of us. We do not want to be able to be sold to the highest foreign bidder. And that is very, very clear in both our Constitution and Article 1 about the powers of the president and
George
all
Washington,
elected officials.
in his farewell address, returned to this theme of foreign entanglements.
That's
how
right.
the young country had to avoid these foreign entanglements. And so it was very, very strong in the culture and of the founders and the structure that they created in the Constitution.
Yes.
And yet we have this administration that's going around soliciting, and now soliciting it openly,
Yes.
brazenly.
Yes.
Now, we should point out that Trump released the transcript of
Yes.
the call, or at least an edited version.
Edited.
Yep.
Yeah,
A
not
version
the
of
whole.
the transcript. But even that edited version, if they were trying to edit out the bad stuff or the smoking gun, they didn't do a very good
Right.
job, because it's clear from the transcript that as soon as the president of Ukraine is raising the issue of the military aid that's
Right.
been suspended, the Congress approved it, voted
Right.
it. Ukraine feels like they need it because of their ongoing struggle with Russia, and now it's been suspended. And he raises this issue, and right at that point, Trump says, "But we'd like you to do us a
That's right.
favor, though."
That's right.
A favor, though.
Yes.
And what's the favor? Well, see, can you dig up or manufacture some dirt on
That's
my
right.
opponent, or who's likely to be my opponent in the next election?
That's right.
This is the solicitation.
Right.
And Republicans are saying, well, there's no quid pro quo here. Well, there is. It's pretty clear. Military aid has been suspended.
Yeah.
Do us a favor.
Yeah.
But even the solicitation, there doesn't
That's
have
what
to be
I was
the
gonna
quid pro
say.
quo. Just the very solicitation
correct.
is illegal under federal law.
So how about in saying China should do it too? China should look into it. And
So, yeah.
Australia? I don't know.
What?
Yeah, so
So I find that very interesting in Trump's approach to any of the attacks against him and his presidency, right? Because
Right.
his response is is a classic bully response, right? And one of the easiest political tactics is just accuse the other person of doing whatever it is
Right.
that you're accused of. And he does this, I think, in an attempt to normalize the behavior. Right. So what a lot of Trump supporters will say was, well, everybody, this is how politics is done. Everybody, pays off mistresses. Everybody engages in these conversations. We wouldn't want to have released any other leader's calls to a foreign nation. Right. And then he comes out and says on national TV the thing that is, yes, absolutely illegal. I think he does that in an attempt to say, well, this is just how it's done, people,
Yeah,
and that
right.
this is no big deal, and there's really nothing wrong with it. Right? Will that strategy work, number one, or is this an actual unraveling that we're seeing? Because of course we know that Trump doesn't like that sort of negative, bad press. He has
Right.
to sort of win that over. But I think that's what he's trying to do when he says
Well,
those
don't you
things.
think that he just believes that he's above that?
Yes.
That he can do whatever he wants? I mean, how would
Yes.
you release that transcript
Right.
with that damning evidence in there if you didn't think that I can do whatever
It's
I want?
fine, right?
I keep going back to that thing. I could shoot somebody in the middle of Times Square and it wouldn't
Yeah,
make a difference. I think he really believes that.
Yeah.
But his unraveling is coming out
Yes.
pretty close. I
Or-
thought that.
Sorry, President of Finland.
Yeah.
We'll just say that on behalf of Kalamazoo, Michigan today. I feel like, yeah.
The encounter with the press the other day when he just got so angry and then he jumped into his idea about how
Yeah.
crazy the press is and how
Yes.
how false news.
And let's point out some of the other actors involved.
Yeah,
here.
I got a whole bunch of names
Rudy
too,
Giuliani,
yes.
Yeah,
who
Rudy
is not a
Giuliani.
member of the United States government. This is a private attorney for Donald
That's
Trump.
right.
Has been traveling around the world trying to pitch a dossier that's made up of strange right-wing conspiracy theories that have been
Right.
completely disproven. There's absolutely no evidence to support
Zero.
anything that is in this dossier. But Rudy's trying to pitch
That's
it, and
right.
he's trying to get the Ukrainians to, on the basis of this
That's right.
trumped up's the right word.
I know.
On the basis
Whole
of
new
this
meaning.
false, these manufactured accusations, is trying to get
Yes.
the Ukrainian government, and he's out there running a rogue foreign policy.
That's right.
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 But now the Secretary of the State
Yes.
was on the phone call
Yes.
to the president
Yeah.
of the Ukraine.
Right.
Pompeo was listening in.
Yes.
He lied about it. He lied for a week until finally he couldn't
That's
avoid
right.
that he was in fact listening in. So now he's implicated.
That's right.
And we've got other State Department
Perhaps
employees.
VP Pence.
Well, Pence was, and Trump, as you know, was trying to drag both Pompeo
Oh, yeah.
and Pence into it. So well,
That's
they were
one of
they
the
were part of
things.
this whole thing. They knew about it, and Pence went to Ukraine a couple of times, and he's trying to. Everybody has to be smeared
Right.
into the. Maybe he thinks that gives him some protection, right?
Yes.
That if they're all involved in it, then they can't go ahead and impeach all of us, right?
Yes.
I think he thinks there's safety in numbers.
yes.
Maybe.
How about the Attorney General?
Well, and the Attorney General. We don't have an Attorney General.
No.
We have
He has
another.
an attorney
we
general.
have another personal
I would
attorney
agree.
for the President of
Right.
the United States. William
Yeah.
Barr is a disgrace.
Oh.
He's an absolute disgrace. There's never been an Attorney General in the history of the United
Yeah.
States that is acting with such partisan
Yeah.
indifference to
Yeah.
his role as the attorney for all of the people.
That's
We
right.
the people. He's supposed to be the attorney
People's
for the
attorney.
country.
Not at
for all
all.
the people.
Well,
but
it's,
he's-
agreed. It's important to think about how this case has even come before the House of Representatives. So, right, there are formal channels and procedures that, according to all accounts right now, the whistleblower did follow.
Yeah.
Right, as you sort of make these claims against your government, it goes through particular channels, and that got held up, of course, at the Attorney General's and the Department of Justice,
Nothing
who
to see here.
is
Move
implicated
along.
in the, and this happen. This is common, right? This is not outside the bounds of process for that whistleblower to have contacted then members of the House, chairs of those committees, Adam Schiff, right, and say, there's been an urgent caution alert, and you haven't been notified about it. To then have Adam Schiff have to force that call, the whistleblower's complaint, to even come forward
Wow.
to the committee. So, you guys remember this guy called Nixon, right? And there's, it's not, there are actions, and there may again be a cover-up. There's a recorded smoking gun call. I mean, the parallels here are pretty
Right.
interesting on some of those fronts. But I think it's important to think about how this all came to a head, to be at the House, and for Nancy Pelosi and the leadership to say, yes, this is enough.
We have to go
We
forward.
need to move forward. Because, of course, there have also been dozens of other calls for impeachment. I didn't
Right,
do a historically accurate count on that
Yeah.
over the last 2 years, from everything from emoluments clause, right? Well, this has been a great couple years to teach political science and the Constitution. Folks are learning all sorts of new words.
There are 10 documented cases of obstruction of justice in the Mueller report.
Exactly. So, and I think, it's very interesting to look back, and, that was a turning point for me to say, why are we not starting impeachment proceedings after the Mueller report, right? It is no longer it's about the office and the integrity of our institutions.
If we don't impeach this president for these high crimes and misdemeanors, when will
what
we
is it?
ever,
Right.
why even have the
Then what is
impeachment
it?
clause in the Constitution? Because if it's not going to be used in this particular case, the most
That's right.
egregious case we can think of, then when will it
Yep.
ever be used?
I also think the Democrats, Pelosi is she's a very smart woman, and there were reasons to not
Right.
do
Yeah.
right and thinking about the
Right.
election. And I think with the Ukraine, it's why you might move forward as a Democratic strategist there is it's much simpler story to tell than the whole Mueller that was
Right.
prior
very- yeah.
to Trump taking the oath of office, the election. There's a whole very complicated set of story and facts there, right, that are no less troublesome. But this is a much simpler story. You called, we got it on tape.
You got
There's
him
a,
on
a
tape,
quid pro
yeah.
quo that seems pretty clear. And so I think it's a story that if you're going to continue to shape public opinion and have this, useful, you need to be able to shape that and tell that story. And I think this gives the Democrats a really simple story to be able to say, look at this guy.
The other thing that's really interesting to me is in the whistleblower's report, he mentioned a lot of other people. He said a lot of other people
Yes.
have spoken to me
Yes.
about these issues. And I'm wondering who those other people are. They must be people that are in Trump's inner sanctum in there. And
Right.
I
They're
wonder.
troubled by this. And of course, these phone calls are being put on this super secret
Yeah, right.
server,
Exactly.
right, where for national security, highly classified stuff, and these phone calls would not rise to that level.
Right.
They're doing it just to politically protect
Absolutely.
the president. It's not for national security purposes. So that's another abuse of power right there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the Democrats are moving forward, and I think it'll be interesting to
Yes.
to see what happens, and we'll keep following this. We've talked about the Mueller report, and we talked about impeachment at that point, and it wasn't going to happen. But now it looks like it might actually
I
happen. I
think-
think we're going to move forward, and maybe the next time we tape, we'll have some action on impeachment. of
So you
Donald Trump.
say you think it's going to move quickly. Why do you say that? What do you,
I
what-
just think the Democrats are. I think they're serious about it now.
I do too.
think they've kind of broken through that firewall, right?
Yep.
And now it's if you're going to do it, then do it and do it quickly and
Yep.
try to do it as far out in front of the 2020
Right.
That's
election.
exactly
Right.
it. Mhm.
So I think it's
Okay.
going to move quickly.
I do too.
I think Pelosi has basically said, okay. Pelosi was holding it up. That's
Yep.
very clear.
Right.
Yep.
Pelosi said, no, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
She was
Yep.
protecting electoral chances in the 2020 election. Now Trump has forced her hand. We've broken through this firewall. She said,
Right.
go ahead, and so they'll do it now, I think.
Right.
And he will be impeached by the House, and that will necessitate a trial
So
in
right.
the Senate.
Right.
Mitch McConnell has basically said, hey, the Constitution says I have to do this. That hasn't bothered him in the past about things,
It's true.
holding up Supreme Court nominees and other things. But so McConnell actually came out, and I think that was a kind of a signal to Trump. When McConnell said, I think I'm going to have to do this. The Constitution says the Senate has to hold a trial. Now, the big question then, so we know, I'm pretty sure he's going to be impeached by the House. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Then the question is what happens in the Senate? When is the trial held? When does McConnell get around to doing it? And then what do the Republicans do? And I think Republicans are in a real pickle now because some of those people that are vulnerable in the 2020 election are going to have to make a choice. Am I going to support a president who
Right.
clearly has broken the law, who clearly deserves to be impeached based on his conduct?
Right.
Or am I going to try to appeal to that base and try to hold off, hold my seat by going with, rolling the dice and going with Donald Trump. And I think most people who roll the dice and go with Donald Trump throughout his life have gotten burned.
Oh yeah, he throws
And,
everybody under the bus. But I think that's public opinion.
Yes.
As public opinion grows, and there's like it's big change over the last month.
There is.
That's when these guys really become imperiled, because if so many more people in the country are moving towards, yes, he has to go, and you're going to take a stand with him, you're on the wrong side there. And I think they're going to have to face that.
That's right.
We're gonna need some people,
So-
Chuck Grassley or
Well, and
Susan
Grassley
Collins,
from Iowa
Lisa
has come
Murkowski.
out.
Right.
Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, another huge, Republican Trump supporter over the years, has come out. And you're absolutely right about public opinion. And so I looked it up. So a year ago, or in the first sort of iteration of any talk of impeachment, 35% of the American public was in favor. Now we're at 49%.
Yeah, right.
So those are also numbers that Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure, watches on a
Right.
daily or hourly gigameter. Trump approval is still at 41%. So
Unbelievably.
that's also unshakable. And so one of the things that we often try to disentangle in political science is, does the party lead the polling and the voters, or does the polling actually push the party? And I think we're in one of these weird situations where it's a little bit of both, right? Until the leadership comes out and says they're going to do something, yes, this is breaking the law, the elites in the party need to be saying those things to get the rest of the public on board. What the Republicans will do, I think it will also move quickly. I think the House will move with the articles of impeachment very, very quickly because of the primaries that are looming.
Yeah.
I mean, February, some states start, right? March is our primary here in Michigan. What the Senate will do and what Republicans will do,
That's the big question. That's
right? You need a 2/3 vote.
Yeah.
It's a supermajority in the
Right.
Senate
so
to
a
convict.
number of Republicans have
It's
to
never
break
happened
ranks.
before, right? Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton.
Even Andrew Johnson
Even
survived.
Andrew Johnson survived impeachment.
Nobody
you
deserved to
guys.
be impeached more than Andrew Johnson.
Oh, my
And
God.
yet he survived.
And that was just over a few, maybe corrupt appointments. I mean, well, that's, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see.
right.
So stay tuned.
Yes.
We'll certainly be revisiting this as the impeachment inquiry moves forward. Let's go from the national to the local political situation, because, Don, we have an election coming up next month here in the city. Pretty important election. So we have a mayoral election. Bobby Hopewell has decided not to run, so we're going to have a new mayor.
Right.
Don Cooney has decided not to run, so we're going to have some new members of the city commission. So first of all, Don, your decision not to run, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And, it's not like you're going to retire and not do anything.
No, I want to
right?
make that clear. I am not retiring. I heard there's life after the city commission, and I'm looking forward to it. But I don't hope to slow down. I hope to be in the forefront of the movement of everything you guys are doing, and the whole movement for working people and the poor. Yeah, it was a very tough decision for me, but I have a 3- and 4-year-old grandchildren now that are over our house, and I've put my wife through 12 campaigns
Wow.
and 22 years on the commission.
Yeah.
And I don't see how I can continue to do that and not pay attention to these kids. So that's what's really driven me to do that. So
Well, I just want to say, tremendous
Oh my
service that you
God.
have rendered.
Yeah, I can't-
Incredible. I mean, no one has done more for the city of Kalamazoo on the city commission than Don Cooney has.
Absolutely.
You deserve all kinds of applause and awards for the tremendous service. You went way above and beyond the call of duty and what you did for the city of Kalamazoo. So we want to thank you for your service. People say that in other contexts, but we really mean
it.
thank you for that great service that you have rendered.
Well, I want to thank the people of Kalamazoo for allowing me to do that. I think I got into that, I was usually on the other side of that podium, fighting. But I really believe that government can be an instrument for social justice and social change, as we've been talking about the whole time. And I think that we've been able to do that in a lot of ways on the city commission. I think the whole conversation of the city commission has changed. When I first got on the commission, my first budget that we were talking about in a public meeting, I said, I think we ought to take a lot more of that money and put it in the service of the poor. And my commissioner sitting next to me leaned over to me and said, "We don't do that.
Wow.
The county does that."
Wow.
I leaned back and said, "We do it now."
Yeah.
So I think that now it's at the forefront of what the city does. So I think the city's involved in very important things with shared prosperity. And with some of the other things that we've been doing, we've made a lot of
again, I
progress.
think this is where you have given tremendous service, because I think you have pushed the city forward and made the city address a number of issues that it never wanted to address, and you've basically laid out a very strong progressive agenda. Haven't always won everything, but you've laid out a very progressive agenda for the city, and a lot of that has been moving forward. And it wouldn't have moved forward had you not been there to lay that vision out and to push for it as hard and strongly as you did.
Well, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do that. And the one thing I know is you never do anything alone. That it's the cardinal rule of organizing is never get isolated. So a lot of the things that we've been able to do, it's because of other people. I mean, I've had the good fortune to serve with 3 wonderful city managers and 3 excellent mayors, and colleagues who really care about the city. People really do care about the city, and they want to get it forward. I think there's a lot we still have to do. I think that I came here from Philadelphia and New York, and the problems there are so incredibly difficult. But the problems here are manageable. And we really could be a national model for reducing poverty. And I think that we have all the ingredients here, but we do not have a common agenda. And I think that common agenda has to come forward, and then I think we could really do a lot of great things here. So, yeah, great. So there's some good people running. Really great people running, I'll tell you.
So we have 4 candidates for mayor.
4 candidates for mayor, and very capable, all 4 of them. I've been working very closely with a young man from the Edison neighborhood, Esteban Juarez, that very few people in the city know, but he has quite a story. He's one of 12 children. His parents were crack addicts, so they didn't take care of the kids. So he was on his own from the beginning. When he was 15, he started a gang in the Edison neighborhood called the Washington Street Boys. And he ended up being a pretty tough guy and getting stabbed and retaliating and going to prison for a while. And then he changed his whole life around. And what he does since then, for the last 15 years, he's only 33 years old, he's worked on the streets. So he knows what's going on with the poorest people in the city. He started Momentum, which is a nationally recognized program for helping people get back into employment. He works with the police in violence prevention. So I think he's really a good candidate. There's a lot of good candidates for the city commission, and I think the values that they hold are the values that will really help the city move forward.
So we have a kind of a wide array of perspectives, I think, in terms of the mayoral race. You know, David Anderson, who's been a long time city commissioner, very involved in the city over the years. David Benak, who's a professor at Western Michigan University in history, very involved in green politics, and then this young man that you've just been talking about, and I think we have another young African American who's also in the mix. So the people have a pretty wide array of ideas and perspectives to choose from on the mayoral race. But it's very important for people to remember to get out and vote, right?
Well, they do, and I will plug that WMUK and Western Michigan University's political science and our We Vote, which is our voter registration, education, turnout arm. We just hosted a city commission candidate forum few days ago. WMUK,
Wednesday, yeah.
go on there, go online to WMUK. Sorry to plug another network, but that whole thing is also was recorded and is broadcast, so you
Right.
can hear their answers. Right, get registered, get educated.
Yeah.
We will hold a mayoral forum on October 22nd.
That's right.
On Western Michigan University's
Yeah.
campus. You can come just listen to the 4 candidates for mayor that evening. It's an interesting thing for us political scientists because we've switched, right? It's not an at-large election for mayor, right? We used to do the most votes is mayor, where you have to run specifically for
Yeah,
mayor now,
right,
and we have a
right.
stronger mayoral system. So it's a big change for Kalamazoo that I find lots of people asking me questions about, right? So yes, if you vote, whoever you vote for mayor for, that will be mayor. The rest of the people don't get on the commission, right?
That's
and
right.
That's a big shift.
Big shift.
In Kalamazoo.
Yeah, and it's the right
consciousness.
way to do it.
I think that it's been a long time coming. So, and thanks to our current mayor Hopewell for making sure that transition happened at the end of his tenure. So
Yeah.
come get educated at these forums. League of Women Voters, lots of other folks are holding forums all over the city in the next month, gearing up for Election Day, November 5th, here in town.
And you vote for 3 candidates
You
for
vote
city
for 3
commission.
candidates
These are
for the
for
city.
4-year terms, right?
Correct.
Yes, 4-year
So
terms
now
now.
we've gone to 4-year terms.
Yep.
So once people are elected, they have a little bit of time to get into
that's
the
also
job.
smart.
and-
That's
and-
right.
and, you know,
It-
because you were in the past we were doing every 2 years.
Every
Yes.
2
And
and you're
years,
so kind
and
of constantly running, and
too much.
That's why, would you say 22 years and 12 campaigns, right? Oof.
Yeah, well, 2 of them were for Congress.
Right,
And
right,
10
yeah.
were for the city commission.
Right.
And I would just point out on that, whoever gets the most votes among the candidates for city commission will be vice mayor.
That's right.
Okay.
Good
So
point.
that's really important too. That's an
Yes.
important.
that was a role that you held at
Right,
one
but there are
point.
overall 8
Yeah.
candidates for
Yes, there are 8 candidates.
for 3
Yeah.
seats, and again, a very competitive. Lots of great
Very
folks.
competitive.
It takes a lot to put yourself out there publicly, so I think we should give a lot of credit to all the good folks at Kalamazoo who stand up and are hoping to maybe take over some legacy there from Commissioner Cooney.
You know, I really like the way the campaign has proceeded. I don't see people
Agreed.
tearing each other up.
They're being very
I see people
civil.
being very positive and saying, okay, here is, I'm not running against, I'm running for, here's the things I'm running for.
Agreed.
And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Don, from your perspective, as you're leaving, new mayor coming in, new commissioners, what are the sort of top issues that the commission and the new mayor are going to have to deal with?
Well, one of the top issues is what we talked about in the first part of this program, and that is climate change.
Yeah.
I think the city could do a lot more
Yeah.
about climate change than they're doing, and I think there are some models around that we should follow. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is intergenerational poverty. This is a huge issue in the city, and we know that nationally, social mobility has declined tremendously.
Right.
So that if you're born into poverty, your chances of moving out are very, very little. So we have the ingredients here to do something about that.
Yep.
And I think specifically a couple things that we should do. One is we have to make better use of our schools. Our schools should be open into the evening. They should be open on the weekends. They should be open in the summer. And we should turn them into community centers under the control of the local people there, with services for young people and adults. I think that Western Michigan University should play a much larger role in the community. Ron,
Here.
a number of years ago, you and I worked to try to get what we called a settlement house in the city. I would call it now an urban center. Western should be in the middle of the city, bringing down students, faculty, the resources that they have to help these communities succeed. I think we need to do a lot more about housing. The problem with homelessness is a national problem, and it's rooted in the national policies, but there are a lot more we can do. And I think one of the things that would be an important step would to be bring in here a consultant who has worked with other communities to deal with homelessness. I think that there would be a lot of potential for that. So there are some of the things I'm interested in.
Okay. And in terms of resources, this has always been an issue, but
Yeah.
now because of this private-public partnership,
Yeah.
we actually have some resources. Probably,
Absolutely.
right?
We have had for the last 3 years, $10 million a year for aspirational projects. We've never had that
Right.
before. And the other day, we had a meeting and I checked on this, and we're going to have $10 million a year for the next 3 years.
Wow.
For aspirational projects. That's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, when I started on the commission, we've been struggling just to keep our people. We started out, when I first started on the commission, we had 916 full-time workers. Now we have 632. So we were going, and there was no end in sight. It was going to keep getting worse. But the Foundation for Excellence has stabilized our budget and has given the opportunity for us to do a lot of these aspirational projects. So really important. One other thing I think that we really have to pay more attention to is what the YWCA is doing with Cradle. And that's working with making sure that every kid is born into a healthy home and has a chance to succeed. They're doing a tremendous job. They need a lot more resources. The hospitals are working with them now. So there's a great opportunity here to make that work.
A bold agenda, huh? Well, we look forward to working with you on the other side here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Now I got time to
You
do
can
a
come to
lot
other
more with you
meetings now.
guys. Absolutely. Yeah, right.
Well, again, I just want to say
Yeah.
on behalf of all the citizens of Kalamazoo, thank you for the tremendous service that you've rendered. And
thank you.
Again, we wouldn't be pushing ahead on some of these very bold
be.
initiatives without your leadership and your commitment
Yep.
to trying to make Kalamazoo one of the best cities in the world to live in. So we want to encourage people to vote on November 5th.
Yes.
And we'll keep looking at what's happening at the national level with regard to impeachment. There are a couple of other things going on in the community that we want to also talk a little bit about. Kalamazoo Nonviolent Opponents of War. Which, by the way, was an important
member of the
climate
coalition.
crisis.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
A
absolutely.
fiduciary, a
Yes.
speaker, a table.
Wow.
We get a film crew out here. You guys are awesome.
So we want to plug KNOW.
Yes.
KNOW is sponsoring an event coming up on November 2nd. November Fest is
Very
the name that has been selected. It's an opportunity for people to come and meet with the members of KNOW, and we're going to have a number of tables and other resources, and so people, if they want a chance to come out and have some good fellowship and get connected with the broader social justice community, this is an opportunity to do so. It's going to be at 3707 Greenleaf Circle, November 2nd, which is a Saturday, from 11 until 2. And so there's going to be a lot of good food, a lot of good fellowship, and an opportunity to connect with social justice organizations in our city. And Denise, we want to also remind people about the Fridays for the Future event.
Yes.
So next Friday, we're back at the Office for Sustainability at the intersection of Howard and Michigan, the old bookstore for some
That's
people
right.
to remember.
That's right.
But we're going to have an event on climate migrants taking place there next Friday at noon, right?
That's correct.
And then the Friday
Every
after
Friday
that.
to come at Kalamazoo Central High School. So I really liked your point, Don. Western should be a hub for these things. Our high school should be a hub for these things. We'll be opening up our already public institutions to continue to educate and lift folks up.
Good.
And we're trying to do that even if I have to buy out the parking lot in order to get you there. That's what I'm doing.
That's great.
And the point you made, Don, about Western, getting the students involved. There's so much energy and idealism among our students, and we saw that with the global climate strike, and I think we need to tap into that. It's a tremendous resource for our community. Well, thanks to my critical commentators for all the good commentary today, and thanks to you for joining us. We invite you to come back again on Critical Issues, Alternative Views.
clear.